Hi, thank you for watching another one of my videos. And surprise, surprise, I am changing the front brake fluid on another Ducati Superbike. This time it's going to be a 2009 Ducati 1198. This is going to be the same whether you have a 1098 or an 848, 916, 998, 996. They're all pretty much about the same. So the first thing I want to do is I want to protect the bike from any brake fluid. You do not want to get brake fluid on your bike. And as you can see from the color, it's a little bit dark because Ducati owners love to be at Starbucks and they seem to want to have all their fluids to match the color of their coffee. That's the only thing I can figure is, yeah, it's just part of owning a Ducati. You don't want to maintain it. You just ride the shit out of it from home to Starbucks and back to home again. And if it breaks down, you just take it to the dealership, and your girlfriend will pick you up in the Prius and bring you back home. Anyway, this bike, 7,200 miles, 2009. It's never had any of the fluids changed on it. And that's probably including the oil, because the oil was pretty black when I dumped that out. But brake fluid and clutch fluid should never ever be this dark of a brown color. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our Mighty vacuum pump and we're going to pull all of the dirty brake fluid out of the reservoir. So as you can see, it's pretty brown and nasty. Dot 4 should never be that color. And if you're one of those jackasses that think that you're on a race bike and that's the color of your racing fluid, you're full of crap. Get your head out of your ass and change the brake fluid in your freaking system, genius. Especially if you're going to sell the bike. Because most of us who are shopping for a Ducati, we know the difference between black brake fluid and clear brake fluid. So we've cleaned out the reservoir. Now we're going to drain the entire system of any fluid. So I'm going to put my Mighty Vac on the bleeder valve on the front right caliper, and I'm going to suck the fluid, and this will pull the fluid from the reservoir to the front right caliper. And you can probably skip this step, but I just want to make sure I got as much fluid out of the caliper as possible. But you could skip it and just jump over to the left hand side if you have the stock configuration of brake lines. I'm not a fan of the one brake line going down to the right side and then a brake line jumping over to the left side. I think a better way for Ducati would to have two independent brake lines coming off the master, but that's just me. I mean, it still stops the bike, but if you look at my personal Ducati 848, I went ahead and I changed this out, and I went and put the galper brake lines on, so I have two braided lines, one going to each caliper. Again, I'm on the left hand side, and I am going to break free the bleeder valve, and I'm just going to pull whatever fluid I can get out of the system. Alright, so we have all the dirty fluid out of the system now, and that stuff's just nasty. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some brand new Dot 4. I just went to the Walmart store and got it. Dot 4 is Dot 4. It doesn't matter what color the bottle or where you bought the bottle from or how much you paid for it. It's Dot 4. You're going to put it in your Ducati, and you're going to put it in your Ducati, you're going to run it for about a year, and then you're going to swap it out and put fresh brake fluid in next year. If you're not putting fresh brake fluid in at least once a year, then your brake and clutch just aren't working as great as they could, especially your clutch. That clutch fluid gets dark really quick. And if you watch my next video on doing the clutch, you'll exactly know what I mean. If this were a Honda, it's 7,200 miles. a Honda would still have yellow brake fluid in it, but for some reason these Ducatis just seem to just eat up the dot floor. Alright, so now we're going to pull fresh fluid through the system. So I'm starting over on the left hand side, and this will actually pull fluid from the top down to the right hand side and then over to the left hand side. Yes, you still need to bleed the right hand side, but there'll already be fluid in the caliper, which is good for you. But we want to make sure that we get as much contaminants out of the line, so we're going to go ahead and bleed the right hand side since it's not that hard of a job with our Mighty Vac tool. So the brakes are somewhat slow going, um, and a lot of it has to do with coming all the way down the line and crossing over. You'll find when you do the clutch is a lot faster to do than the brakes are. But I only pulled about half the reservoir out of the system, and I'm going to top it off now before I jump over and start doing the right side. So now I'm going to start on the right side, and I'm going to pull about half the reservoir through again. And really, you only need to get the fluid to start coming through the hose, and then you're good. But I can do the entire bike on a 12-ounce bottle of brake fluid. So if I waste some, I waste some. It's no big deal, as long as I get as much contaminants out of the line, the way I look at it. Alright, so we pulled it through the right side. Now it's time that we need to bleed the master. Now the master is going to be that bleeder valve, the nipple that's on top of the brake lever. So we just need to pull that little rubber cover off, and always make sure, can't stress this enough to you guys, always make sure that you have these rubber covers on top of all of your bleeder valves. You don't want dirt and debris and contaminants down in that bleeder valve. And I always like to break it free just to make sure I can turn it before I have to start working on the bike. And again, let's bring out our towel so we can protect as much as we can. And you'll see where this towel paid for itself in the next couple minutes, because I do end up whacking the reservoir, and I splashed brake fluid. And if that towel wouldn't have been there, I'd have been cleaning up a lot more brake fluid than I had to. Alright, so I'm going to put my 11mm wrench on the master bleeder valve, and now I'm going to put my Mighty Vac on that master bleeder valve. I'm going to start pumping, and let me get adjusted so you can see what I'm doing. And you'll see that it doesn't take a whole lot of vacuum to get this going. About 5 pounds. We break that bleeder valve free, and it goes nowhere. If you watch the reservoir, we pump and we pump and we pump, and the fluid just doesn't go down. And you're going to find this when you do your own. Every now and then, there's just something not right. And what I found is you can try pumping your brake lever. Sometimes that'll free up anything that might be in there. I would say there's just an air bubble that's just caught in the way, and it's just not letting any of the fluid by. But a few pumps of the brake lever usually will free it up, and it'll start flowing again. So here we go. We've got fluid flowing now. And once you feel comfortable that you've gotten enough fluid out of your system, then you can just shut it down and tighten that valve back up. But like you see in my video right now, you're going to run into this same thing 1, 2, 3 times when you're doing your own brakes. It's common, and it's not just Ducatis, but I've had it happen with Suzuki's, Kawasaki's, Yamahas, Hondas. It's just something about the master that doesn't want you to have brake fluid going through there. But now we're good to go. And when you saw me pull that wrench back, I whacked that reservoir pretty good, which made brake fluid splash up. So if you get brake fluid on your parts on your motorcycle, just stop the job and clean up the brake fluid first. Don't continue working on the bike. Stop, wipe all the brake fluid up, any spots that you see brake fluid, wipe them up, clean up all the brake fluid, and then move on. So now you look at, I have brake. So if I push that brake lever back, I'm not getting within an inch of the throttle. So that's pretty good right there. That means when my buddy jumps on this bike and he goes into a turn, he doesn't have to worry about that oh shit moment grabbing a handful of brake and there not being any brake. He's gonna have brakes. So we tighten up our nipple, make sure that's secure, and we're going to put our little rubber cap back on there. Make sure you get all the brake fluid off of that bleeder valve, because once you put that rubber cap on there, if there's still any brake fluid reservoir on that bleeder valve, it will start to oxidize that metal, and when you pull that rubber cap off, it might be corroded underneath there next time. So top off your reservoir, only take it to the high level, don't go past high. If you do, when you put your cap on the reservoir, fluid will seep out, and you don't want fluid seeping out on your bike, especially on a Ducati paint job. Last thing you want is brake fluid getting on your gas tank. So not only does the ethanol swell up your gas tank and make it look all warped, but then the brake fluid starts eating the paint off your warped gas tank. So we tighten the cap down, and we go ahead and we wipe down our bleeder valve down on our left caliper. Make sure again you put that little rubber cap on your valve. Jump over to the right side, do the same thing. These rubber caps are more important than you think. They're as important as that metal cap that you put on your valve stem to keep the dirt and debris out of your Schrader valve in your tire. So last thing you do is pump up your brakes, and then I'm going to say thanks for watching my video, and please watch some of my others.